Hi all, this is part 2 of the 3 knights opening trap, so please check the first video on this which had the introduction for this trap. Let's have a look now. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. So the trap is an innocent move which encourages black to play the routine bishop c5. So here, as mentioned in the introduction video, knight takes e5 should lead white to potentially a clear advantage. Let's have a look at this line. Knight takes e5, d4, and instead of the retreat bishop d6, let's see if black tries to be tricky here. This could be in a blitz game or a bullet game, and plays bishop takes d4, luring your queen to what seems to be a nice central position. But black plays a not so innocent move which seems to just protect the knight on e5. So this might be tempting to play a certain move or two which could, unfortunately for you, lead to disaster. That's why I don't want to be responsible for your disasters too much. So I'm hoping many of you will see this part 2 video. What shouldn't you play in this position after queen f6? So white play with 2 potentially disastrous but tempting moves. Okay, if you play bishop e2, this is not a good idea. Can you see what black can play in this position? And unfortunately, you've been the victim of a nasty trap instead of getting a nice advantage. Black to play, if I give you 5 seconds here. Okay, knight f3 check, hitting the queen, and it's check, so you'd actually lose your queen there. Yeah, safety precaution should be noted. Same with knight d5, which seems maybe pretty tempting. There's knight f3 check, which hits the queen, wins the queen. So be aware of that tactically. And in fact, if you want to know the strongest move here, white can actually progress to an even bigger advantage, because this is actually like not the best move. It's a bit trappy in an unsound way. White's best move is actually knight b5, with the idea of trying to win another pawn, not a rook, just another pawn, because the queen, the important thing about this is that the queen is protected now on d4 from the knight. So knight f3, we just take that, we got the queen protected. So with the queen protected, we hit c7. Let's have a look at what black does here, what black can do. On c6, let's take c6. You can take time to play this check, because it's check. You don't have to worry about your queen just yet, but you have to be concerned about the queen. Knight f5 check. And here, if king f8, you've got this bishop without a counterpart. The queen's now protected by your knight. You can take time out to play b3 now, with the idea of bishop a3 check, because you've got that powerful bishop without a counterpart. And for example, knight g6, black's finally winning to exchange off queens, but you can throw in this check. Then you can damage the pawn structure, for example, knight d6, and you've got an even bigger advantage now. So you've really punished the counter trap variation, should we call it, the counter trap variation. Let's go back and look at a few other things. So queen f6, knight b5. Let's look at king d8, which seems as though it's plausible, protecting the c7 pawn. Of course, black's castling rights have been forfeited. There's a strong move here. Can you see? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video, what would you play with white in this position? Okay, queen c5 hitting c7, and also a very nasty checkmate. So for example, c6, queen f8 is actually checkmate because the knight's covering the escape square, quite amusingly. So yeah, that's not on the cards. d6, we can smash through with queen takes c7 check, and then take here, and then take the bishop. Massive advantage, crashing through. So yeah, that's unpleasant. King d8, c6 is unpleasant. d6, safety point. Remember, the queen's got to be protected against knight f3. But you can take time to take that pawn, as long as, please don't take the rook, otherwise you'll be falling for this again, knight f3 check. As long as you know that you've got your own issues here tactically that always need to be addressed at the moment. You play knight b5, snagging that pawn. And you might think, well, hold on a sec, black can nudge this. Isn't this disaster scenario again? Because my knight moves and then there's knight f3. In this position, there's a really crushing move which sorts out this tactical issue in a very effective manner. White to play here, what would you play in this position? So please, not knight c3, knight f3 check, because you lose your queen again. Not that. But there's a really powerful move. The king's in the center. Bishop g5. Very, very forcing, powerful move. Now if the queen moves, then your queen's no longer in danger, and you can do all sorts of things. Maybe just even retreat back. That should be safe enough. If the queen takes here, then you can take on d6 check, and after king e8, knight c7 check, and it's actually check and mate here, in fact, after knight c7, check mate. Yes. So yeah, I felt I had to do this part 2 video. My sense of responsibility for those trying to use the trap in part 1. I will definitely put a link to this in the part 1 video. So this is the variation where black doesn't retreat the bishop but tries to be cheeky in response with bishop takes d4. So some counter trap to be mightily aware of here and to know exactly what to do, which is knight b5. Okay, that's the absolute best response to this for the variations mentioned. Hope you got something out of this and in a safer position to use the trap overall now. Thanks very much.